Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I've seen some of you express an interest in the Scandinavian stories since it's so dark and rough, especially in winter. Maybe check out Paranormal No for some stories if you're interested. When I was small, I had a friend who was often home alone. When he was alone, I would go over to him and play some Nintendo, or watch TV, or play cards. Before I tell the rest, I would like to just say that this event is completely true. It happened in the outskirts of Drammen place. The story was actually printed in the newspaper. But nevertheless, back to the story. On one of his home alone nights, he phoned me and asked if I would come over so we could come up with something fun to do. But it was my dad's birthday, so it couldn't work out that evening. Hours later, the clock struck 11 in the evening. I had gone to bed but wasn't able to sleep. The phone rang. I heard my dad take it into the living room. Who can it be so late? I heard my dad say before he lifted the phone and answered. Hello? Who is it? Seconds passed before I heard anything. Then my dad spoke again. But why don't you phone the police? A few more seconds passed. Okay. Calm down. This will all be straightened out. The atmosphere in the living room had drastically become more serious. I jumped out of my bed and sprinted as best I could into the living room. What's happened? Your friend phoned. He says that there's an unknown man in the house. It's apparently a policeman. We need to phone the police. He's hiding in the wardrobe. Later in the evening, after the police had been phoned, they found out that the man who had come into the house of my friend was an insane maniac who had broken out of a mental institution. But it wasn't clear where he had got a hold of a police uniform. 2 days later, it was printed in the newspaper that a policeman had been found, brutally murdered not very far from my friend's house. The policeman had been stabbed 60 times with a knife.
Not my story. I landed at the Høybuktmoen airport in Kirkenes at 9:30 p.m. one evening in March. It was ice cold and dark. My brother waited for me at the airport because I'd parked my car at his house in town. When we went home to him and his family, I had a cup of coffee and a sandwich before I started on the long drive home to Bourgogne. I dreaded the long drive home. Even when I was sitting on the flight that was taking me north, I had anxiously thought about the journey, and now I really wished I had brought someone with me. What if a blizzard began? I'd be guaranteed to be stuck somewhere on the lonesome highway. Imagine if I'd had someone with me now, I thought while I drove out of town, past the border guard military barracks, approached the airport, passed it, and began on the first desolated stretch of road. I was going to go down a hill, and lo and behold, there stood a soldier by the side of the road hitchhiking. I stopped the car and thought that the least I could do was give him a ride so late at night. Besides, my son was in the service at the same military station. The boy sat in the front seat, had no baggage with him, and was extremely thankful that I had stopped. I quickly told him that I wouldn't be driving any farther than Bourgogne, and that meant that he had to get off at a place called Brønnøysund, because it was there that I had to get off the E6 down to Bourgogne. It's no problem, the young soldier assured me. He'd surely get a ride further. Something I silently but strongly doubted, as it was late at night with minimal traffic. The boy was incredibly talkative, and we chatted non-stop the 8 miles to Brønnøysund. I told him that I came from Oslo, and about a meeting I had had with a shaman. He was very enthusiastic and said that he believed in such things. I said that I was going to write a report on the shaman in the local newspaper. Then you can be sure I'll read, because there is a lot more to this world than meets the eye, was something that he said. I was puzzled when he said that he was from a place west in the county, because his dialect was obviously and definitely not from that side of the county. But I said nothing. He told me that he was doing his military service with the border patrol, and I enthusiastically said that my son was a driver there, and told him his name. Yes, said the soldier, I know exactly who he is. After an hour's time, we reached Brunsletta, and I had told him multiple times on the way how happy I was that he had stood there on the street and hitchhiked. I said this again as we approached Brunsletta, and said that I'd be happy to drive him some miles further to the next town, because there were street lights and houses there. I thought it would be easier for him to get a ride from there. Thank you very much, but you don't need to. I'll get off here. Aren't you concerned that you might not get a ride and it's cold and dark? I argued. The soldier laughed a short, soft laugh and said, Concerned? No, I'm not concerned about or afraid of the dark. I insisted again that I would drive him a couple of kilometers farther, but he decidedly declined, and I let him out with a heavy heart at lonely Brunsletta. Then I turned around towards the road to Bugoyne's, and I turned to look for him, but I didn't see him. When I began driving on the right road, I turned around one more time, but no, I couldn't see him now either. I was puzzled, but had to concentrate on driving, and now I was excited to come home. My son came home on leave, and I told him about the soldier from the border control. I gave him all the details, where he was from, which day and time I had picked him up, and I think that I also had gotten his surname. Roger, Robert, something like that. I don't remember it now, but I remembered it that day when I told my son. The week after, when my son came back on another leave, he said to me, nobody had left that day. Nobody from the border patrol was from there, and nobody had that name. So who did you pick up that night? I looked at him, and then I experienced what people call blood freezing to ice because I remembered the other details. The baggageless boy, facial features that I hadn't gotten a good look at. He didn't look at me a single time, and when I looked at him, all I saw was his blurry profile in the dark car. And then when I reluctantly left him on the lonely plain, he vanished in thin air. Another thing is that at the place I picked him up from, there stands a monument to the fallen soldiers and executed prisoners from World War II. When the government built this road, they found large amounts of human remains, and that's why the monument was built. At least I got what I asked for: company on the long drive home.
We have a story about a white lady in my hometown of Marslet in Denmark. She was the daughter of the local nobility that lived in a small castle called Wilhelmsborg outside of town. The story tells us that while on a horse carriage trip from nearby Aarhus, she was attacked and impregnated by a noble who was sharing the carriage with her. Her parents were very ashamed and locked her in her room until she gave birth. They then took the baby, killed it, and buried it in the nearby forest with its part of the family inheritance, jewels and money. When she heard of her child's death, she took her own life. Now she walks the woods protecting the gravesite of her child and deterring treasure hunters from stealing the inheritance. It is said that if you see her at night in the woods, you shouldn't follow her, as this will make her believe you are a thief and she will attack you. I've walked many times in that forest at night, and I've seen her from time to time, flitting through the trees. I've never tried to follow her.
So if we can beat the ghost lady, there's jewels in it?
That's what the story implies, I guess. I wouldn't try, though. I've had her lunge at me during one of my walks in the forest. Didn't harm me in any way, but she seemed very angry.
Hi/X/. The story I'm about to tell is from my father's perspective. He is the one who experienced all this through his younger years, although I have my fair share of tales myself. So to give you some background, my father, still healthy and alive, lived in the countryside in Norway as a kid. He had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and his parents, my grandparents, were dirt poor. My father didn't have a great childhood as my grandpa was an abusive alcoholic, but never put a finger on my father nor any of his siblings. My grandma, though, that's another story. Anyways, my father would tell me stories about his childhood. Most of the stories were just your typical brag stories about all the crazy shit he and his friends did, but one of them particularly caught my attention as I grew older. The story of Nokken. My father told me he and some friends used to take Ole's car and bathe in the different freshwater ponds scattered through the woods where they lived. The reason for this being the ponds were never very big, therefore warmer in the summer. Anyways, one day during a typical hot summer day, my dad and some friends decide to pick up drinks, food, and go into the woods to find a new pond to test out, do some barbecuing, bathe, and in general have a good time. They were around 14 to 15 years old at the time. People nor police care much for the laws of drinking underage or driving underage in the deep countryside of Norway, by the way. At least, not that long ago. My father, Frank, Ole, and Tor got the moonshine, some sausages and cigarettes, put everything in the back of Ole's truck, then hit the road. My father told me they chose a different part of the woods that day, following a narrow old road further and further away from the town. My dad noticed that the further they drove, the darker and denser the nature around them got, as if the trees blocked the bright summer sun out. After about 2 hours, they hit a dead end. The dirt road they had followed seemed to have no apparent purpose, as there were no houses nor cabins around or near the road. Ole, being the dude who gave less fuck than most of the general population, said it was probably some old road used to transport logs back in the day. So they decided to get their stuff and walk through the forest, hoping to find a good spot to hang out. After walking for maybe 20 to 30 minutes, Frank started yelling from the front of the line they had formed, "Hey guys, I can see the trees loosen up a bit. Maybe there is a pond nearby." And Frank was right. In the middle of the now gloomy forest, there was an opening where the bright sun was shining bright through a hole in the dark green roof, and rays of sunlight reflected off of the coal black water, as if it was a mirror. Tor, being the wild one who probably had ADHD, sprinted towards the water and jumped in with all his clothes still on, his body for a second fading away in the murky water. He yelled, "It's like 26 degrees. Celsius, that is." The rest of the gang quickly followed Tor's example and jumped in. They were laughing, celebrating, screaming, and splashing water on each other. You know, the things that we do when we are having a good time by ourselves. My father, though, told me that from the second he jumped in, he felt fear, as if there was something in the water, deeper, lurking, waiting. He did not think much of it, and did not want to be a party pooper and ruin all his friends' experience, so he kept his mouth shut. The pond, my father said, the pond was dark as the night sky, and some white lilies were scattered like stars on the surface. He apparently was surprised by how deep it was. It went from being quite shallow close to the shore, but after only a few feet, there was total blackness, like straight up 90 degrees deep down into the unknown. As they were bathing, drinking, eating, and smoking, feeling young and full of life, my dad and Tor decided to jump into the water for the second time. The plan was to swim a little further this time, exploring what could be explored. They once again took off their clothes and felt the muddy, dark water swallow them. My father again could not shake this feeling, fear, as if it was spelled out in bright red letters inside his head. And even if he wanted to, he could not stop staring down into the water as he and Tor started their little adventure. The bottom was no longer visible, only eternal black. Tor said, "Hey, Petter, my father's name. Want to go get some lilies?" Picking lily flowers while bathing in a lake or pond is kind of a tradition, at least among my dad and his friends. My father replied, "Sure, Tor." Tor said, "Hey, let's head for those over there," and pointed his finger at a small cluster of the flowers. And just at the same time, the exact moment my father was about to sling his hand into the water and swim for the lilies, he saw it. It struck him as a lightning bolt from a clear sky, and he just froze. Filled with panic, confirming the fear he earlier had felt, he stared down into the dark abyss, only to meet a set of two huge eyes. From here on, it gets pretty intense. My dad described them as lustful, the same way a hyena stares at a dead carcass before putting its teeth deep into the flesh and meat, and they had a vague glow, green-yellowish. Full panic mode, my father swam as fast as he could, water entering his throat and eyes, and at the same time trying to scream for Tor, "Tor, get the fuck out of the water!" Tor, frightened by my dad's voice, which was clearly filled with panic, started panicking himself. As my dad climbed ashore, clearly exhausted with Tor not far behind, Ole and Frank, who were clearly not affected by what they thought was a joke, started joking around. Ole said, "What's wrong, Petter? Did you get bitten by a fish?" before bursting into laughter. But the laughing quickly faded away when they got a good look at my father's face. He was pale as the first winter snow, with his eyes wide open. Tor slowly climbed ashore as well, not really sure what the problem was. He laughed for a second before asking my father what happened. My father said, "I saw something deep down there. I am telling you guys, I felt it ever since we got here." Tor said, "What? Dude, you probably saw your own reflection in the water. It is a pond. It is probably not even a fish larger than your toe in these waters." My dad, clearly frustrated and scared, said, "I am not going in that fucking pond anymore. I am done bathing for the day." Ole and Frank, obviously trying to be the brave ones, said, "All right, it does not matter. We are still going to have a good time, even though you are a pies." My dad told me it would not do any good trying to convince them not to. They would just do the opposite of what he said anyways. As Ole and Frank jump into the water, my dad decides to take a bathroom break to relieve the body from some pressure, he said. So he walked about 200 meters away from the pond, further into the forest. As he took off his pants, he noticed the birds stopped singing. He thought, what? In the summer, birds always sing all day and night, everywhere, but it just stopped, dead silent. That is when he once again saw them, those two eyes, staring straight into his soul. Only 50 feet from where he was about to take a dump, my father saw it, the whole creature in all its glory. Here is where he has problems describing it, almost as if he is trying to forget the whole thing ever happened. The creature stood up, at least 7 to 8 feet tall. It was covered in moss and leaves. Its hands and feet looked like they were wooden veins or roots. And to top it all off, the eyes, like old oil lanterns in the color fireflies emit. Dark, muddy black water was slowly dripping down from this thing, and for what seemed an eternity, it stared at my dad. The creature started wriggling and shaking, looking like it had some seizure. Its limbs moved unnaturally, almost as if they were breaking. Then it turned its head in the direction of Ole and Frank. It slowly raised its dark brown hand up and pointed with its finger, which looked like a sharp branch, directly at my father's two friends. My father, panicking once again, froze the same way he did when he saw this thing in the dark water. It was almost like a pause before he could act. As fast as he could, my father jumped up and sprinted towards the shore of the pond, at the same time yelling the same phrases before, "Get the fuck out of the water!" Tor, who now was in range of my dad, immediately started shouting as well, as he himself also could see the huge creature standing as a shadow inside the forest where my dad ran from. Ole and Frank do not care at first, but as my father and Tor's shouting gets increasingly intense and loud, filled with more fear and panic by each second, they soon come to understand that they were not fucking around. My dad turns his head quickly to see if the creature is still watching them from the forest, but it is gone. And as he turns his head back to Ole and Frank, he sees it. Its head is slowly emerging from the water, and like the fin of a shark, the creature quickly picks up the pace, going faster and faster towards Ole and Frank. "Oh my God," Tor quietly whispers, as if all hope is lost. As helpless as my father is, he cannot do much more than shout. Then Frank screams as if death just approached him. The scream was a death scream, and it echoed through the now even darker forest. My father told me that at the moment he heard Frank, he was sure he would never see his dear friend again. But Frank did not get dragged into the water. He continued swimming. Ole and Frank reached the shore, with it still chasing them, even closer now. My father and Tor, standing by the shore, ready to drag them out of there, grabbed each of their hands and pulled them up. As all four of them finally were on land together, Ole and Frank assumed they were safe. But before they could even enjoy the thought of safety, the creature stood straight up from the water, growling, mumbling, making sick noises they had never heard before. All four sprinted as if they had Satan chasing them, and to this day it could be that it in fact was a demon. Who knows? They jumped into the car and drove as fast as they could until they finally felt the sun once again shine bright on their pale and frightened bodies. Frank's lower leg had been pierced through the muscle, and there were splinters of old black wooden pieces under his skin, sticking out of the wound as well. He still has a limping problem today, my father told me. Anyway, my father told me he told his dad about Nokken, and where they found the pond. My grandfather, who grew up in this small town, told my dad he would never have allowed them to go there if he knew that is where they would end up spending the day. When my dad asked if he knew about the creature, he refused to talk about it. He passed away 5 years later, taking the secrets to his grave. I myself, in my younger years, also visited this pond with some friends once, mainly because I at first did not believe my dad, and because it was exciting. That story was not quite the same as my father's, but still a pretty fucked up story, which I may tell you some other time. But now I'm going to bed. Hope you like the read. Whether you believe it or not is up to you.
So my family and I are experiencing something odd. My mother has claimed for years that she sometimes clearly hears family members come home, sometimes even speak to her, take off their shoes, their jackets, lock the door, etc., and then nothing. When she gets up to investigate, no one's there. No snow's been dragged in, no cars outside, nothing. But one of us will always come home right after. Just moments ago, I was standing in the kitchen drinking a glass of water when someone rang the doorbell. I also heard them walk up to the door, as the kitchen is right next to the main entry. So I instantly put the glass down, rushed to the door, and no one. I thought someone was playing a prank, so I went around the cars, looked around the corners, and nothing. Also, my cat, who is very affectionate of me, was acting weird the whole time. She never does this. She stood behind me almost as scared, staring at the door, growling. I'm not suggesting this was a ghost at all, but it was weird. It might have been a child, but I highly doubt it, as I'm certain I got to the door only seconds after the doorbell rang, and it's very hard to get away without me noticing. Also, I live in Norway. There's piles of snow outside. They would have left footprints. To finish the story, after coming back inside, I waited by the door to see if I could catch the potential prankster, with my cat standing behind me the whole time. And moments later, my dad comes home. He sometimes forgets his keys and will ring the doorbell when he doesn't have them. He's the only one in the family that does this. The rest of us have keys. So I tell my father, and he says something similar happened to him yesterday. He was home, alone and in the kitchen, when he heard someone open the door with a key, go inside, take off their shoes, their jacket, sit down, etc. He paid no attention to it, but then nothing. He goes around the corner to investigate, and not a soul. No snow had been dragged in either. Moments later, I came home. Weird, huh?
I've had similar experiences back when I still lived at my parents' house. I'd get up in the morning, a lot earlier than my family. Got into the shower, and just as I was opening the faucet, someone knocked on the bathroom door. I ask who's there. No answer. I open the door to see if it's my dad, but no. He's sleeping in his bedroom. This has occurred on very many occasions, as well as constant footsteps in the hallway. Morning, day, night. It didn't matter. You just suddenly started hearing adult steps walking up and down the hallway. And after a while, they were gone again. I also live in the Nordic countries.
My situation is quite strange, and I tend to not share it with people too much, but sometimes it scares me. Be me around 17 years old. I am on a road trip through the Scandinavian peninsula with my family and my dad's friend. We are trying to get from eastern Finland to Norway. We are on the road for 8 to 10 hours per day. It is boring as hell, so I just read my books, listen to music, and sleep a lot. I get a strange dream while sleeping in the middle of the day. I'm standing in what appears to be a public bathroom. It is clean and nice everywhere with good lighting. I see a big guy walking out of the bathroom stall. He is a big Scandinavian dude, almost 2 meters high, with a great beard and long blonde hair. He is dressed in jean shorts and a red flannel. I wake up from gentle taps on my shoulder from my mom. She says, "Hey, let's go get some food." I stand up and get my clothes. I look outside. It is quite chilly outside with a very light rain pouring. I pick up my hoodie and head into the restaurant. It is a Finnish restaurant stylized as an American diner. I ordered some stuff to eat. I head into the bathroom to wash my hands. I open up the bathroom door. It feels strange. A dude walks out from a bathroom stall. It is a fucking big Viking son of a bitch with a gorgeous beard and long hair. He is dressed in jorts and a red flannel. I freeze for a couple of seconds, recognizing I've seen this exact moment in my dreams. A glimpse of terror arises somewhere deep inside. My brother says, "Hey, why are you standing here like a statue?" My brother came in and put me away from the freeze. This was the first event ever like this that I have ever experienced. They are still happening to this day. I hope I'm not alone in this and somebody shares their similar experience, because this is some weird Nietzsche shit that was bothering me for a long time.
Be me. I am going home from my buddy who lives in the middle of nowhere, farmer country. I live in Scandinavia, so paranormal experiences are quite rare outside of occasional UFO activity. I am just dragging my bike along on this couple of kilometers long stretch of farmland road. There is no light besides my phone. I am just chilling, enjoying the silence of the night and the clear sky with basically no light pollution. Suddenly, I get hit by that feeling. It is close to the feeling that hits you when you feel the need to have a stare down with the sky. I hear a croak, just a croak, a big fucking croak. I instantly know this is not a sound that is supposed to exist at this location. For a frog or toad to have made that sound, it would have had to have been huge. For whatever reason, I become super aware. I can feel my kidneys going cold, like when you accidentally cut yourself and the adrenaline gets going. I am a rational dude, and I know I am about to panic. I stop, breathe, get low, and scan the darkness around me with all my ability. Something is quite literally just sitting in the darkness, a good 7 meters ahead of me, out in the field. This was after harvest, so nothing was blocking my view besides darkness. This thing is about the size of a Labrador, but just way rounder. I see no eyes or teeth or anything besides this indistinct mass. My instincts are screaming though. I just know it is staring me down, sizing me up. I get the bright idea to lift the phone in my hand to unlock it and snap a quick picture. My reasoning being the flash will confirm if I am just staring down a pile of hay, freaking myself out. I get my phone to about chest height and the thing fucking croaks again and seemingly lowers itself towards the ground. That's the exact moment I shat around 12 bricks and ripped my bike off of the ground and bolted away from there. Honestly, I've been in the area a lot since then, but never went down that specific road, unless I'm in a car.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
I think my friend was a serial killer. Be me, 15 at the time. I met a new kid at my high school. He is Norwegian, but speaks English well. Let us call him Wojak. Wojak is quiet, shy, and an introvert, definitely. I have no reason to talk to him, so I do not. One day before school, I saw some popular kids talking to him. They are not actually having a conversation, but just talking to the quiet kid as a joke. They say things like, "Why do not you ever talk?" and "You totally should hang out with us," etc. It is pretty obvious they do not actually care about him. He can tell and is visibly uncomfortable. I feel really bad for him. I sat next to him at lunch. I say, "Hey man, what is up?" Wouldn't you know it? We hit it off. He's actually a really interesting guy. He has some really cool stories of life back in Norway. He tells me about how he used to go skiing, skating, etc. He tells me he went hunting with his dad even though it was not legal. Badass docs. I tell him about my life. I do not have nearly as many interesting stories. Whatever, I still hold his attention. We start talking more in the classes we have together. Eventually, I invited him to my friend group. The boys love him. He is not so shy anymore and gets a lot more comfortable with us. He got comfortable enough to tell me about his messed up childhood. He is otherwise very charismatic and intelligent. He is funny and good at reading the room. His only issue is that sometimes he says really bizarro shit and he gets angry too easily. Like we were at a party and he was smoking a cigarette, and my friend for some reason thought it would be funny to just take the cigarette out of his mouth. Wojak fucking flipped, snatched it back and shoved my friend hard. We chalked it up to the alcohol, but looking back, he definitely had some anger issues. He used to love to go hunting, but not with a rifle in the woods. He would buy animal traps from the Home Depot and wait till the animals were almost starved. He would do shit like dangle food in front of them, kick them, etc. Usually he let them go, but I think that is just because we were there. One time, me and my girlfriend at the time were in the woods for a stroll, and we found a trap that he left. We had run across a few traps with mildly injured animals that he left, but this was bizarre. There was a coyote in there. The worst part was it was still breathing. The fucker beat the shit out of it and left it to suffer. My girlfriend was so freaked out she made me stop talking with him for several days. Eventually, I just called him and asked what the fuck. He said it was not him, and told me this long-ass story about how some random coyote must have trapped itself and some teenager must have just beaten it. Wojak was a very smooth guy once he came out of his shell, so I had trouble not believing him. My girlfriend did not buy it, but when he told it to her, she said it made sense. He was very, very smooth. After that, I never saw another cage in the forest again. Fast forward to my 18th birthday party. The party was taking place at a local club. This fucker dips halfway through the party. He shows up later sweaty with a red nose. He was acting floaty and ethereal. I thought he might just be drunk, but his nose was bleeding. Looking back, I think it was broken. Some kid went missing at the club on my birthday. I never pieced two and two together. For the next few years, he did nothing but act suspicious as hell. He would disappear for stretches of time. He would appear smelling like chemicals. He had random blood stains and bruises. His anger was basically gone, but he was still very charismatic and perfect. That is why nobody ever thought it could be him. He never drank, never smoked. He gave off extreme Patrick Bateman vibes. 2 weeks ago, he got shot. Apparently, he tried to stab someone, but the guy had quicker fingers. That is what made me consider this theory in the first place. His family is gone, so the funeral was mostly his old friends. When I realized it, I spoke to my friends and then the police. Basically, everyone agreed Wojak was definitely somehow fucked up. A few friends told stories about him showing off knives and saying really fucked up shit like I am gonna force feed that bastard his own fingers, and being kinda emotionless. We told the police and they are launching a full-scale investigation. That face when one of my best friends was a serial killer.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.